So I don't know how many of you noticed the topic today. The title is Imperfectly Perfect. And I remember years ago, and I don't remember where I read this. It was just something I read, and I was kind of interested in symmetry. Within our teaching, we get into things like physics and those kinds of things. There are some great physics principles that we believe stand behind spirituality. And what I mean by that is that through physics, we can sometimes see the workings of spirit. We can see the workings of transformation. And so our teaching has a close relationship to a lot of people who work in physics and teach physics and understand it. And symmetry is one of those ideas. And symmetry, basically, what it says is that there is something, an object, looking in a mirror, and it sees the exact replication of itself. Then you go a little bit further in symmetry, and it says that everything has a half and it has a corresponding half, and so those two halves match up to make the whole, and so on and so on and so on. And so symmetry sounds a lot like perfection to me. And so let me give you an example of that. If you were to see someone wearing a bow tie, for example, and you look at that bow tie, now you may not have an instrument to measure that bow tie, but you can look at it and you can say, wow, that is a perfect bow tie. And that means both sides are about the same, they're lined up, it's not crooked, it's absolutely straight, it's sitting there, it is absolutely perfect. Okay. And so that's an example of symmetry. What's interesting, and this is what I read, is that we as human beings seem to be drawn to asymmetry. And what this little piece I read said, that when we encounter a perfect bow tie, maybe walking at us, we tend to step back. If a bow tie is coming at us, it's asymmetrical, we tend to step forward. So we are drawn to the asymmetrical. In other words, we are drawn to imperfection. I think that that's really fascinating. I wonder why is that, you know? And so I want to share with you, again, I'm really getting into some old school metaphysics today. And there is a definition that goes something like this. Because there is no more compulsive evolution, we have to work in conscious union with divine spirit. Okay, what's that mean? That's some thick stuff. So we who study metaphysics, we believe in physical evolution. We believe that that's how the world came to be. Some people think, well, if you're into evolution, you can't be into God or spirit, and we say, no, you can have it both ways. So in other words, we have God or spirit, and God or spirit rolled out there this idea of what's called compulsive evolution. And what does that mean? You know, that talks to Darwin. What happened within the species to get to where they are? Why does a zebra have stripes, and why does a leopard have spots, and why can a grasshopper jump a whole lot of ways, and why do why did rodents decide to learn how to fly and become bats and things like that? And it was this evolutionary process. And so basically the metaphysical idea of that is that there was this this foundation of perfection that compulsively allowed all of these beings, all of these creatures on this planet to evolve into a place where they could live in harmony with their environments and to do what they needed to do, whether they were grazers or predators or whatever they were, insects or fish. I don't know if you've ever been to a tide pool, but you can look at a tide pool for a while and say, well, there's all kinds of interesting things down there, but there's no fish until you look closer. Look really close. Because the fish that are in there, when you look down on them, they look just like the bottom. There's a reason for that. Because of seagulls. For seagulls, that's like a smorgasbord, right? And so they needed a chance to live in there, so they evolved the camouflage. That's compulsive evolution. That means that there was a law put into place that just began to run. But we ask ourselves a question as human beings. You know, blue jays know what they are, chipmunks know what they are, zebras know what they are, but sometimes we as human beings don't know who we are. We don't know what we are. I work in a profession. I've worked with people for a long time, and the one thing that I have found over and over again, I have heard this a million times, Andy, I don't know who I am. I've been in this world 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, whatever. I really don't know who I am. That's interesting. In other words, that's a capacity we have. Because Ernest Holmes and other writers talked about this idea that once compulsory evolution ended, then something else took over. In other words, we had to engage to figure out who and what we are. A combination of freedom and choice. Freedom and choice to take ourselves to incredible places, or freedom and choice to take ourselves into other places, places of discomfort. And so we have, on one hand, symmetry, perfection, and we have asymmetry, imperfection. And psychology says we tend to be drawn to imperfection. That, by the way, is why we love the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is absolutely imperfect in all kinds of ways. The background doesn't match up. She strikes people as this beautiful woman, but there's a lot of masculinity in her face. We don't know if she's smiling. We don't know if she's smirking. We don't know if she knows something we don't know. We don't know if she wants to leave. You know, she's got a very interesting look on her face that people interpret in their own way. She is not symmetric at all. She's asymmetric. And that's why we love her. That's why we're drawn to her. So, are we drawn to asymmetry? Because, as this quote would indicate, when it says, "For we have to work in conscious union with divine spirit." What's that mean? That means that when the trouble is coming, or the imperfection is coming, our job is to lean forward into it. Because we are co-creators. I was in Sacramento years ago, and I was in old Sacramento, and I was in one of those, I don't mean any offense by this, I was like, what my grandma would have said, I was window shopping, right? And I was going into all the tchotchke shops, and I was just going in and out, right? So I go into this one store that had a very Western theme to it. Everything in there was, fake cactus and fake turquoise and just all kinds of stuff, and cowboy stuff and Native American stuff and all this stuff. And so I was looking around, and I remember I came around a corner, and there was this T-shirt. They had a bunch of T-shirts there for sale, and they had them facing out, completely open on hangers. There was a T-shirt that was either navy blue or black. It was stark. It was dark, and the store was pretty light. Actually, it was kind of like desert earth colors. The store, and so this really stuck out. There was an illustration on the front of it of a Native American, and he was standing behind a fire, and so the shirt itself implied that it was nighttime, and it was nighttime when you look at the picture. But they put it on a dark shirt, so it was very vivid. And he had his hands stretched up to the heavens, like, and he's looking up, and he's in spiritual-looking regalia. He may have had something in a hand, like a rattle or something, I'm not sure, and he was looking up to the heavens. The smoke was coming up off the fire, and you could see a sprinkling of stars, but within the smoke you could see the embers and the sparks, and they were moving up in, and somewhere in that neutral area between the actual, where you could tell there were sparks and embers and the stars, there was a morphing into stars. I looked at that illustration. I was just absolutely mesmerized by it. And I had been involved in this teaching by that time for a while, and I had gone to a lot of classes, and I was really thinking a lot about stuff, and I was thinking about prayer. And I was thinking about As I looked at this shirt, I was thinking about the times that I have approached spirit. Because psychologically speaking, when we look at an image like that and we see someone looking up to the stars, we immediately think about spiritual religious ideas. For some reason, we as human beings have always looked up to find God. That's why we suppose heaven must be up there. That's why we suppose, we look up there. And I wonder about that. I wonder what captured our attention. So let's come back to the idea of compulsive evolution, because compulsive evolution always also meant us. It was, how did we get from the trees and the caves into the Serengeti and begin to stand upright and begin to develop our culture, hunter-gatherer cultures, tribes, bands, all that sort of thing. Where did that start? We started to put together mythology. We started to put together meaning. There's been some exciting work over the last few years. I don't know if you're aware of this, but some of the what they call funeraria things that are taking place within caves of ancient people, going back, anthropologists say, much further than we thought, that people were burying their dead and things like that. Because there was a time when our ancestors, when someone passed away, just like when any living thing passed away, it was kind of turned over to the vultures, right? And the band moved on. But no, there was a time compulsive evolution ended. And we began to think about funeraria, which is the first indications of spiritual thinking. Why is that? Because it's like, what's next? And within those graves, there are indications of flowers, there are indications of tools, there are indications of amulets, much further back than what we realize. And so, when compulsive evolution, meaning hunting, gathering, maybe we didn't even have names for each other. I don't know, but all of a sudden, Bill over here, he's gone. Well, it's okay. Well, sorry, dude, we got a hunter and gatherer, right? There came a point where we stopped and we thought. And when was that time when our gaze moved from the hunting gathering to up? Who am I? What am I? That's what our metaphysical teaching is saying. So I looked at that shirt and I looked at that individual there, and I could relate to this picture. Looking up and wondering, are you there? Is something there? Because what I'm experiencing down here right now is some asymmetry. Not quite right. Not quite perfect. And I can relate to that personally because a few years before I ever got involved in metaphysics, I had spent several years very meticulously and carefully constructing a life that was very unhealthy. I put a lot of work into that. And it had finally really gone off the road. And I was over at the coast one night in a campground near Fort Bragg, and this campground was kind of the Wild West campground. I mean, they said like, oh, where do I camp? And they said, if you can find a picnic table, that's where you set it up, right? Nothing else, just picnic tables. So I'd go out there as far as I could out on the beach in the sand. I found a picnic table and set up, and I was camping with somebody. And that with somebody had gone earlier in the evening, had gone to bed in the tent and was asleep, and I was alone, and I could hear the ocean. I had a fire and a ring going there. And I had become aware of how unhealthy my life was, and there was something about that ocean, the darkness, and the stars. And I remember, I so much did not want to believe in God. I was so angry at religion, but I was looking up and saying, wow, there's something going on here. What am I going to make it? What am I doing here? Who am I? What am I? I was in that kind of a crisis, right? Gentleman by the name of Wayne Kritzberg, who I'm a big fan of, a spiritual writer, says, anyone who has ever tried to change, evolve, heal, gain wisdom, or build something better for themselves, and struggled or lost faith, knows that great assistance is needed. Great assistance is needed. Hope comes from knowing we can tap into a source of limitless, unconditional love that will guide us to let go of limited beliefs, habits, and practices. This might be called building faith. Whoa. So, building faith. Now, we've been talking a lot about courage here at the center. That's been a theme for a while. So, if we ask ourselves a question, how is it that I build courage? Is it through hope and faith? You ever thought about that? What are the tools of courage? Hope and faith. So let me give you a definition of hope and faith from, again, the metaphysical point of view. Charles Fillmore, who is a co-founder of Unity, said hope is the expectation of good in the future, the next minute, next day, next year, and so on. It is a quality of sense mind, meaning based mostly in material experience. I mean, I hope tomorrow can be better. I hope there's something out there for me. I hope there's a direction. I hope I can actually start to feel better. I hope I'm heading in the right way. See, that's pinned on this idea of the material, the presence, the sense part of us. Fillmore goes on, faith is perceiving, using our mind while linked with the power of spiritual assurances to shape the substance of an experience. Whoa, shape the substance of an experience. Hope is, I hope it gets better. Faith is, I believe that I can shape this substance. That's where our evolution went towards. When compulsive evolution ended, as human beings, we decided to start to shape our beliefs, our meaning, our futures, our desires, our purpose. That's what happened. And now we have to work with the asymmetry. Faith is a deep knowing that that which is sought is ours by right of an aligned consciousness. You see, that's what I was talking about before. Our form of prayer is not beseeching. It's not throwing rocks in a pond. Our sense of prayer is alignment with God, becoming a character of some kind, a character that is reflective of a human being, a man, a woman, father, mother, is relatively new in terms of the history of spiritual ideas and the formation of religion. Before that, our ancestors saw an alignment. If I want a garden to harvest, I need to align in the proper season, till up the soil, put down the seeds, water the seeds, and then I let nature do the rest. But I have to do my part. There's an alignment. This is why asymmetry draws us in. How many of you have seen someone with a really crooked bow tie and your impulse is to reach up and try and straighten it out? You see, that's dialed into us. That's something that is dialed in to our evolution once we move beyond the compulsory evolution. Something to work with, something that we are drawn to, something that lets us know that we're on the right path. Have you ever thought of your challenges as inviting you in? And if your challenges are inviting you in, is there a reason for that in the larger sense of things? Because if all of our fancy spiritual beliefs are true, if we are eternal beings, if we are traveling many journeys, if we are hoping to, be a better person, however we measure that, than we were yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, how do we go about that? We have to work with it. We have to be drawn into it. We have to become partners with the laws and the energies of spirit, the creative force of spirit. That's why we know that our oldest ancestors in the funerarium that they practiced, they were trying to shape life for Bob, who passed away. They were trying to give him some tools, some flowers, some regalia, so that as he moved forward, he could make his life better. Now, we may not see things that way today, because as we have grown down through the ages and evolution has taken, and we working with evolution have taken ourselves further, maybe we have different ideas about that sort of thing. But it's still the same idea that we are drawn into. We are drawn into the evolutionary experience of who and what we are. Ernest Holmes says, to daily embody the great ideal is the royal road to freedom, to a peace which passeth understanding, a peace that passeth understanding. In other words, a peace, it's there, but I don't know how I got it. I don't know how to get it, but I'm going to have to be drawn into it. Let us learn to see as spirit must, he says, let us learn to see as spirit must, which is a perfect vision. So that we know what asymmetry is because we know what symmetry is. And to work from asymmetry towards symmetry. So I want to end by completing the sentence that I sort of led with when I said, because there is no more compulsive evolution, for we have to work in conscious union with divine spirit. So now I'm going to complete that for us. Because there is no more compulsive evolution, for we have to work in the conscious union of divine spirit, for that is the only way spirit can evolve a spontaneous individual. A spontaneous individual. A zebra does not develop its stripes spontaneously. It does it compulsively. We have been given the freedom to evolve in whatever direction that we want to. That's right for us. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right.